Hi guys, so I'm following up after George. That was a lovely talk, and that was based on GraphQL and React. What we're going to discuss today is the competitors, Vue.JS. So it's nice that there was an introduction components. You've seen some of the code. It will be nice to actually see the differences in the codes, and actually the end results can actually be similar. So it gives you the ability to actually make your own choice and go on Vue. Let's see. Oh yeah, if I switch this on. So before we start, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Simone, and I'm a technical lead at Vue. So I actually work in Swansea, but we do have offices in Bristol and everywhere in UK and also overseas. You can find me with Zeligated0 everywhere, at the website, email, Twitter, and please feel free to contact me. And if you want any more information, if you want the resources, if you want suggestions, anything you want, just contact me, even if it's for the pizza or Italian stuff, I'm fine. So I am a dad, that's full time. I am a basketball referee, I'm a conference speaker, I'm a blogger, but what I really am nowadays is a lover of Vue.JS. So I am mostly with my work, I'm a full stack developer in my current position. I'm moving towards a senior JavaScript position with a Silicon Valley startup in the next couple of months, and that will be sure just on JavaScript, React, Angular, and Vue. But I need to be honest and say that I really like the Vue. But even if I'm happy to see I like to see every side of the ecosystem and try to work around with it. But Vue really struck me. So what we're going to do today. I'm going to do what George tried not to do, and is jump between PowerPoint and code, so it's going to go terribly wrong. I'm going to type, it's going to go terribly wrong as well, but it's going to be fine. So we're going to touch a little bit on what is Vue.js, just a little introduction components, so at least Vue.js components. Then I'm going to give you loads of resources to get started if you've never done it before, so loads of different things that will actually support you and get you started very quickly. And then we're going to build a very small application trying to use components. We try to use mixins. I try to show you what the difference is in properties, lifecycle, and so on and so forth. So there is loads to cover, and hopefully we can cover everything. So the JavaScript has been crazy for the last 10 years. We all know NPM came on board, fantastic, easy to install, new packages. But what that really meant is that everyone was just creating their own, my.js, Simone.js, Simone Cuomo.js, Zeligated0.js. So it was a bit of a crazy decade, okay? What happened in the last few years, and I think from 2014, 2013 onwards, is that big companies such as big names such as React and Angular came into the ecosystem, and they started to, I wouldn't say slow down the speed in which JavaScript is changing, but what they did, they actually started to make a little bit of, they started to put order in the very fast-moving ecosystem. Vue was actually created in the same year as React. The only difference is that it took a little bit longer to start because it didn't have a multi-million company pushing it behind the scenes. So it was more about people starting to use it. They were going to conference. I went to conference last time. I had to go to London, not paid for. I had to pay for the travel, for everything. And the guy next door to me was paid the journey from from Los Angeles, a week paid to see London. It was quite different. So a question that I forgot to ask on the previous slide is, how many of you guys have actually used anything such as Vue, React, or Angular? How many of you have actually used Vue.js? Wow, fantastic, that's good. How many of you have actually used Vue.js all the way to production? I knew. The hands go down. Don't be scared, guys, it's fine. For some of you that actually used Vue.js before, hopefully I'm still going to give some resources that can be useful. And I'm also trying to give you some feedback on way of creating components, and something that we went through in our lifecycle work that actually we learn from our mistakes. So hopefully, if I can avoid you doing the same mistakes, that will be fantastic. So as I say, these three main competitors came on board, and they're really pushing for the JavaScript framework to be standardized. So what happened is that Vue.js decides this is the way you do routing, and it just pushes something. React will do the same. And this is the way you do static website with React.js, and then there is a very similar one for Vue.js. So they're starting to just say, instead of just 15, 20 different ways of using things, they're just pushing for one and one only, and they're pushing the whole open source community to support the one specific feature or package. For example, in Vue.js, in React.js, we got React Native for native API, native application. For Vue.js, we have native script. So again, very similar. They all got the same aim, that is trying to provide a one stop to actually create application with these frameworks. And what they're really trying to do is make it very simple for you guys to use native script from a starting Vue application. And they're working, and they're doing it really well, because loads, as you can see from the hands up, loads of people are getting into this framework, and there's no, and the reason is actually the fact that they're making things simpler, simpler to actually search for it, simpler to actually go through and make your own decision. Well, there's less decision to make. That is a good thing. So first question will be, why would you ever want to use Vue? So you go around and React, and React is the word you use, and React has a cool sticker to go on your computer and everything else. But why do I use Vue? So first thing is not backed by a multi-million company. That for me, it means that actually for Vue to be successful as it is, without someone actually paying thousands and thousands of pounds to send people to all conferences, is a big, big achievement. So that's a really important thing for me. Is very quickly gaining market share. You will see there's a slide next where it shows the GitHub starts from last year. It's not at React level yet, so we're talking about probably less than 1 million people actually, of activities, when React is probably over the 10 million. So, we're not at that level yet, but the speed in which it's gaining momentum now is really increasing. I think it's the right time to learn. Then there's a low learning curve. So we, in Vsolution, we started to employ loads of graduates. So what we did, because we couldn't choose if we use Vue or React, we decided that one department was using Vue and one department was using React. I know, that was the great choice. So what we did then, just to make things harder, we employed graduates from university, and half of them went to the React team and half of them went to the Vue team. So there was a little bit of fighting. They're still fighting, and they will be fighting forever. But what I really learned from it, because I was on the top of the queue, so I was able to see the progress and what was going on. The guys that started with Vue, they were, when you were showing them the first interaction, when they were showing them what they were supposed to actually achieve, they were excited, they were ready to jump on board, because at the end of the day, use normal functionality, use HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. They were able to see something they recognized. Then we did the same perfect exercise with React. They say, okay, this is very simple. Okay, let's start from the bottom. And they were going, oh, okay, whoa, that's loads of JavaScript. I've never seen all this JavaScript. Don't worry, it's all going to be HTML, so you're going to be fine. They do everything. Where is the HTML? No, it's coming. This is JSX, so that's not HTML. So there's a little bit more of a learning curve. I know that most of you are senior developers, so you can go in React. Everyone loves JavaScript, and it's simple if you are a senior developer. But for the guy coming out from university, I can guarantee you that Vue.js is going to be, it is really supporting. In our place, I can guarantee you that the guys that are doing Vue are already in the team. They're happy. They've not had that many difficulties to actually gain control, and they're more proficient in actually creating components, advanced components, and actually play with application. When the guy with React, they took a bit longer. They both achieved the same, but I know that the effort they took from me to actually make them achieve the same was a bit different. And then it's easy to implement in an existing project. So we have Vsolution where one of the main application is a bit old, so it's from 2007. We still got jQuery 1.6. So it's an old app. It doesn't have any of this fancy auto reloading, ES6. So part of it does, okay? So it's not that bad. But we wanted to implement React in it, and it was a bit complicated because yes, React is fantastic, but you cannot just take React and add it on a page and have one single banner done with React, because then you can't really play with the DOM, and it was harder. Yes, there are ways to do it, but it's not what it's supposed to do. So as soon as you go and search it, there is always a big banner and say, you're not supposed to do this. This is the solution. So we thought, okay, let's not do React, let's try with Vue. We took Vue, we took the Vue file in our application, We create the header and the footer, nothing special, so just header and footer. We didn't even do compilation or nothing, and it worked. From there on, then we started to build up, to start to have NPM package, to actually have components exposed. And we created our own NPM package with components, and we build on top of that. So it was simpler for us to take it, put it in a real application, and then build on top of it. So this is one of the reasons why probably I'm very keen with Vue, but may not apply in your specific way. So this is one of the slides I wanted to show. So this is what, so I actually came from, I think on the slide show that was at the beginning, the state of JavaScript. This is one of the statistics that came out from it. So as you can see, there is a big gap between React and Vue in number of starts on the year. This is the only stats in which Vue is actually on top, because you see all the other stats that the gap is very big. So I'm honest and say that it's not overtaking React yet. But this is a sign and say that it's starting to go faster. So give it a couple of years, hopefully not more than 10, it'll catch up. What do you need with Vue to get started? As I mentioned before, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So I'm going to show you a very basic component. It'll have nothing different than an empty export and HTML. There's nothing different in there. So you can really start from something basic and then build on top of that. So if we go back to the graduates, or we go back to someone that wants to do it on spare time. So I started as a developer. I was a chef. I have my own cafe, and a friend came over and asked me to do a website, and I started to learn by myself. Vue and React was not there, so I started to learn with WordPress, and you think, oh, it's great, let me do some change in templates. You know, and everything just goes on top of you. So with this, I can see that there will be more of a trend of people starting to make their own small website. The same thing with Gatsby. It's, you know, the solution, the possibility for people that don't have enough knowledge and don't have someone to train them to actually get something started. So hopefully we will have a trend of more people joining, because I don't know in Bristol, but in Swansea the demand is huge, and the supply of developers and so on and so forth is very, very low. So we need more, and this is a good thing. You need to have Node.js installed. That's probably the only thing you have to do, and it's very simple to follow follow tutorials to how to install it. And you have to have an idea of your choice. So for the idea of your choice, actually, I'm using Visual Studio Code, but what I'm actually doing recently is doing everything I can initially on Codesandbox. Has any of you actually heard of Codesandbox before? So is the guy behind, I met the guy behind the scene, the actual creator of it in Vue.js London. I didn't know it was actually him. The guy is mad. This, you know, it does everything with WebAssembly. So now a Visual Studio Code instance is actually loads in your browser, and I'm going to show you. So if you've never seen it before, I'm going to show you how a Codesandbox starts. You can go on it. If you want a Gatsby, a Vue, or everything, you search for it, you click on it, you click fork, you can start from it, and if you like the project, you just click GitHub, and it creates a GitHub that you can pull and do npm install. Done. So it's a good way, again, for someone that doesn't know what he's doing to get started, get a few pages, getting interested in it, and pull it over. Or for senior developers, it's a good way to have an idea, go on it. They've got native script, they got all these kind of things already built up. So you go on it, you can have a few try and error, and if something really is worth your effort and time, you pull it down and you get it locally. And then, as I say, a basic knowledge of Git, but it's not really necessary initially. I'm going to share loads of resources, but I'm going to send the PowerPoint over later. So if you guys want any resources or the code, I'm going to share everything later on, so you can actually get that. There are two main pages of how to get started. Another good point of view, documentation is fantastic. You go on the actual Vue.js documentation. It's been created by guys, it's been created by the guys that really cared about Vue, it's been updated by them, and you just go there, is the one point of actually knowledge. So it's very important where you know where to go directly, that when you have to go on Google and search for Stack Overflow and trying to find the solution of what is the right way of doing it. They'll tell you what is the right way, it's written very simply, and you can follow it, and that's very, very important for a framework. There's a podcast, Vue.js is done by I think there are two schools for Vue. One is Vue Mastery, and the other one is, Vue School, I think. Vue School and Vue Mastery. This podcast is run by the guy from Vue Mastery. And then there is a link for can't say this word, guys. Sorry. It comes out really bad. So you can just follow this link. It's fantastic, and it's a couple of pages, okay? And it actually gives you, it will support you a lot if you're actually getting started with Vue. Native Script, as I mentioned, is an open source to build native apps, very similar to React Native. It allows you to use all your knowledge you have of Vue.JS and all the functionality and all the existing components. The only thing you have to change is the markup. Instead of be plain HTML, is a little bit different. So it kind of looks like an XML. So you have to pass some properties. But other than that, they're doing a fantastic job. Another thing to say on Native Script is that they got a online playground. So you can actually go and start a project very similar to Codesandbox because they know each other and they help each other. And so it's very good for you to get started without to have to install emulator or anything else. As I mentioned before, Codesandbox. And then Storybook. I don't know, Storybook is actually a React app. And then someone created an adapter of Vue on top of it. So if you either do React or Vue, I really suggest you to go Storybook. Have you ever heard of it? Have you actually used it in production? And that was what really, if you want to do something seriously, this really did it for us. So we created our own plugins now. So we do the component, we got accessibility in the component, we got end-to-end testing in the component. The components get created in images that our BAs can use when they have to do the user stories. It's gone from a simple place where we're actually able to develop components to something huge. I'm not able to show you the Storybook because I haven't pulled it, but it's fantastic. And the DevTools. So I'm going to show you the DevTools for Chrome and Firefox and what it's actually able to do. I know that React is catching up on them. So if you go on Twitter, there's a little bit of a funny threads between the guy that created this and some guys from React because they're joking with each other. One of the guys said, "Oh, you're catching up, guys. Well done. I'll send you the code if you want," and everything started. But it's both of them. I know that they're going to support development, and that's what really matters, to be honest. Vue.js. What he also has, that everyone has Start Vue, npm Start Vue, and everything else. All these big frameworks is something to start. What Vue.js has, in the last big updates, they created the 3.0 CLIs. I had a couple of projects with the old command line interface, and was okay. And I thought, let me give a try with the new one. It is fantastic. So what you're able to do with this is something different from any previously created, start app, if you want to say. So you're able to create your project. And as you create it, you got a long list of features that you can actually apply. So you're able to say at the beginning if you want to use TypeScript, if you want to use Pug, if you want to use what kind of preprocessor, if you want to use end-to-end testing. So you can actually select everything at the start. But the good thing of it is that you can actually add things as you go along. So you start the project with nothing, and as you go through, you say, oh, now I want to do unit testing. So you go there, you add the unit testing, and it's going to add you a component and a simple unit test for you. So I did a project a couple of weeks ago. It was my interview for the new place, where they wanted GraphQL. So I had the project, you add the Apollo API, Vue Apollo, that is what is used to actually do the GraphQL. As you pull it through, it actually shows you a real example of Apollo. You change the endpoint, you change a couple of lines, you got everything. And you can add extension, you can remove extension, and even if it's a CLI, it should be a command line interface, actually as a real UI. I'm not gonna destroy my setup yet. I'm gonna show that later because the actual application is done with the CLI 3. So, components. As you all put your hands up, I think all of you know what the component is. So I'm not really going details of what the component is and why it's useful. The one thing I'm going to say is what is the main difference between other framework component and Vue. A Vue component is really, really simply HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Of course, as you may expect, there are some helper in JavaScript and there are some methods and things that actually make it unique and make it very powerful. But at the end of the day, you start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you build on top of that. And this is, I think, is the most powerful thing. Why would you use component? Of course, is to reduce duplication. So you try to reduce duplication as much as possible. He standardized things. So you're able to create a component. So as I mentioned before, we use Storybook internally. We started to create style guides for our customers. We work with banks, so they're very, very hard. They provide you with this 150-page style guide. So you create that style guide, but then what we've been able to do is, we build, for example, let's say a blog element, okay? What we've done then, we added accessibility on the blog element, and we added keyboard accessibility, and then we added all extra feature for more accessibility, or you add the possibility for actually to be more responsive. So you start to something very, very small, and then you develop over time. The good thing with the component is that you think about, you got the component in front of you, you made the changes to the component responsive, the whole application becomes responsive, or at least that component. And this is what is really, really helping us, and it helps company, because as soon as you sell this to a company, so to your own boss, it makes them understand the return on investment. So yes, it takes a bit longer to do the first component, they will do it with HTML, but over time, the cost reduction and improvement that we actually have in the real code has been fantastic. And then it supports the standards, so much simpler to keep track of how the component how the component progresses and changes, and it's simple for one person like me to have 70 developers to look over them, because it's one place that you actually go. While if someone just change a button in one slide or somewhere, it will be very hard for me to keep an eye everywhere. So it makes things a bit more standardized. So Vue component, you may not be able to see that, but we actually jump on that. So this is a very, very basic Vue component. So there are different ways of declaring Vue components. So you can actually have even just a template literal on, just a simple JavaScript file with a template literal, and that's it. Or there is this, that is what comes with all the Vue, with all the new creation from the CLI. And to be honest, I think for what they said in Vue.JS London, they're moving towards just accepting the .vue files for the future release. So it is for a production-ready file, you will want a .vue file. A .vue file has three different parts. A template where HTML goes in it, so normal HTML, nothing different. A script that is just JavaScript, and then a style where you can actually apply whatever style you want. You're able to then, if you want, add extra preprocessor things to this. For example, the style, you can decide if you want SCSS or less or anything else. With the JavaScript, you can decide if you want TypeScript or if you want Pug, I think, or something different. And there's something else in JavaScript. So there are a few options already out of the box for you. But at the end of the day, if you just take this component, it's going to create a label and it's going to create an input. So there's nothing else. There's nothing of Vue in there, to be honest. But the good thing of it is that this will create some HTML, and differently from React, you're then able to use the DOM whenever you want. So if you had an application that has something on a click event, it'll work. And this is what has really been the main differences for us. So when you take something you want to put it in a very big app, the fact that your old functionality still works were very important. And now slowly we're transporting all the logic within the component. Then we make the component a little bit more interesting. So we add a little bit of style. Very similarly to React, you're able to just have the style that access everything. So this one will change my label everywhere on the site. Or you're actually able to make the style scoped. And that will add a data tag so that will make every component unique, and the style will not actually be, it will not affect the rest of the website. I prefer to actually build things without the style scoped. And I'm keen on using ITCSS. So have any of you used the ITCSS methodology? If you're using components, it's very simple. You do everything up to object in your ITCSS, and then this is the component layer. You do it right, it looks good. You do it wrong, it's bad, really bad. Then we start to put some real Vue.js functionality. So what you see here is very similar to before. The only difference is that the label is actually now is dynamic. So you got something, the label is passed through as a property. So property are information that is passed over from a parent or from the actual root of the application, and you go through that. Better speed up, otherwise we're not going to go through the slides. There are a few things that you need to know to start in Vue.js, two main things. One is the life cycles of Vue, and the second thing is the way you can work around and actually pass properties and data across. This seems very confusing, but in reality it shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, what you need is you need to know what before mount is. So before anything is actually applied to the DOM, you are able to trigger something. So you will probably use a before mount if you're doing a GraphQL call. So you got a component, and before the mount, you can say, go and fetch this content for me. That will start the promise. Is done at the right time of creation for the component. Mounted is when you want to just do something after the DOM is created. So if you got some old JavaScript or anything you want to do with the real DOM, that you want to apply things to, to a node that is actually being shown, to a click event or anything, mounted is the right time. So you have there where you actually do the main bulk of the application as you use JavaScript before. And updated. Updated actually can be triggered, you get triggered automatically every time that there is a rewrite and a redesign of the page. If you use Vue.JS properly, or if you understand and learn how to use it properly, you will not use update anymore. You will start to use the reactivity of the component and the way everything changes. But at the end of the day, those three are the one you really need. But again, these come from the website for the actual documentation. If you go through, it tells you everything of what each of these steps actually does and when is actually they can get used. So it's, again, you can see a very powerful one place to actually see everything. Next slide is on data. How do we pass the data across? And how do we use that data? We got props, data, method, computed, and lifecycle hooks. So the props are data that come from outside. So if you say, for example, I got a main web page, and one of my component is blog posts, what you can add, you can have a JavaScript object on the main page that just pass through all the data of the blog post. So you can say my title, my article, my title, my article. So that's the props. So the props come from outside. The component cannot change the props. So the props are coming from outside and accepted in, and they can, they can be used for the component but not changed directly. The data is, if you will use Closure, is a private variable. So what I usually say with data is the private little variable for a component. If you have different components, each of them will have its own instance of the data. And we're actually going to use the property and the data, the method and the computed. All of this is actually going to be used in the exercise. Next things, we got method. So we all know JavaScript. We need a way to actually trigger something. Method is nothing else than a possibility for you to create JavaScript functions. So you can call those functions from the component itself. So if there is any event, such as a click event, you can call the functions from a mounted. For example, when something is returned, do this. But if you use reactivity properly, you don't even have to do that. Everything is done, handled for you. Then we go computed. Computed actually is better phrase if you called it computed properties. So you may have information coming in. So say, for example, you got a blog post, and the blog post accepts the title and accepts an article. The article can be 2,000 words. If you want to create your own property, if you want to do something that is a dynamic property, you will use computed property. So in our example, what we're going to do, we're going to take this title and these big articles, and we're going to create a computed property of a snippets of just 20 words. So what that's doing is going to go through, taking the article coming in, just make it a subset of it and show it. The good thing of computed is that they are cached, so if nothing changes, it's fine. But as soon as you change a props that actually is part of the computed property, they automatically change. So I'll give you an example. With Vue, you can actually, if you have a main JSON object and you change an article, so I'm changing one single line of it, that will go through the components. It'll change the way it looks, but the computer will do perfectly the same automatically. So you don't have to trigger anything. So the JavaScript code that you actually do will be less and less. And you will see the power of this in 3 lines of code. Next is the lifecycle hooks. So as I said before, if you got a GraphQL API, you may not need to know what you have to do. There is a chance of using also messages. So if any of you is a little bit is a backend developer, you use SignalR. There is a possibility. There is a messaging bus actually built in within Vue. So you're able to trigger messages, and the message can actually do whatever you want, and it's very powerful. So we created a little validation plugin using the messages. So very simply, you just start, we got input fields, and those input fields, we have created the logic within that to actually have validation, and you don't have to do anything else and just pass a rule object like you were used to do in jQuery validate. So it's time to break things, guys. So we are going to build a very small application. So just accept, let's say things like a blog post or little magazine, okay? We are going to do that now. Disclaimer, sorry, in advance, if something goes wrong. So, let me see, where shall I start? So the first thing we're going to do, guys, is I'm going to show you I'm going to show you the CLI v3. So, it's not showing, that's why everyone is looking at me. Sorry, my bad. So if I share. Okay, so don't think about the code yet. Think about the terminal. So what I'm going to show, I'm going to run the CLI, okay? If you run the CLI, you just, as I say, just an NPM package. So, every Vue probably is aware of to use an NPM and actually follow the instruction and everything else. So, yes. So this is still in beta version, and it's been for over a year now. So I don't know what they're waiting to actually release it. So you start the UI, the CLI, you got this. You're able to have multiple projects. So as you can see here, is actually there is a chance for you to actually move within multiple projects, and you're able to create a new project. I'm not going to show you now because I don't want to mess it up. But when you create a new project, you actually go now a UI where you can select, and it's simpler for people that are getting started to really understand what is going on. We go with the plugins. You're able to, as you know, all NPM and everything is allowed, and here is much simpler. So as you can see, it tells you straight away use Vuex and Vue router because most people actually add it. If you want to add a plugin, you just do this. You add it, and as you add it, it actually adds he asks you if you want an example for it. So if you add the plugin, the Apollo plugins, one of the configuration is, would you like me to create a local Apollo web server for you? And if you say yes, it actually does everything, so you don't have to do anything else after that. But then better say no because I didn't know which file to remove. So, use with care. So each of the plugins has its own configuration, and as I said, they've done a fantastic job. So if I go here, you see this is just a visual representation of the JSON file, package.json. When you go in configuration, you can see what kind of configuration can be set. So look, this is the ESLint configuration. You go there, you change the settings, which settings, and this one saves into your config. You don't have to think about, the hundreds and, look, you go in rules. Nice and simple. You change this, you change the JSON object, you're done. You save it, you got it. All this is actually doing on the background is running commands for you. So the guys did a really great job. And then when you go in task, this is the things that I probably like the most. These are all the npm run. So you got the serve, you got the lint to run ESLint, and you got the unit test. So for example, if you go in unit test, you're able to see that you got something that is a bit more visual. And I went to a talk when one of the guys wrote a plugin for the CLI3, and in 2 minutes he actually created a plugin to do something. I have not tried it myself. He always look good during talks, so I'm not telling you that it's actually simple. But straight away you can actually run this, and you can set this parameter to run continuously and things like that. Can you see? You can watch the file automatically run. I think simpler for me to explain this as if we were going through the CLI, and that's the important thing. You have lint, and then if you serve it, it actually gives you also a little bit of information. So all this information actually are available in the code not WordPress, apology. The code that is actually split out in the console, but this is a bit more readable. So you're able to see the time it took, and as you progress, again, you also see the speed test and everything else. So it starts to make. This is more visual, so people will start to think about this a bit more. If he's on a very long list of things that come on the command prompt, you're not going to really look at it, the fact that it's gone from 6 seconds to 25 minutes. So this is probably going to support people actually getting better. It shows you the dependencies, the size of it, and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do today, I started the application. So if I actually go and open a new tab, you got Vue.js. What this is the actual, this is actually the component that is created when you create a new app with Vue.js. So when you create a new app in the CLI or in the new UI, You got something similar to that. Of course, it doesn't say Bristol.JS. I tried to, but it doesn't. But it gives you essential links. It gives you the ecosystem and actually supports you in getting started straight away. And I can guarantee you that you follow these links, it gives you enough information to actually get started. Before we jump through, I want to show you Codesandbox very similarly. So if you go in Codesandbox, you go in code view, and it creates, boom, a Vue app for you. So this guy is very, very clever in using web assemblies. So everything is all the power has been taken by my browser, and this is the component that gets shown. So this is what a web app actually look like a Vue app actually look like at the start. So there's one single component, and what they've done, as you can see, the component is just HTML. They've done nothing wrong with it. The only thing that they put is a message, just to show the simplicity of it. No. So we got this first link. What we're going to do, as I said, the end result is going to be something like this. So I'm not really going to focus on the style, guys. And I'm not a designer, as you can see. I can do better than that, but that's really bad. So what we're going to do is, there are going to be a couple of components. So the main page, nothing special. We're not going to go on details. We got a news snapshot component. And then we're using a Mixins for the accessibility, just to show you how easy it's actually to create a Mixins that can be reused everywhere. And then we're going to show you likes, and the likes are actually is an implementation of the data. So it shows you that if I change the like on one component, does affect the other one. And then we're going to show you the show full article that is the implementation of computed properties. So we're going to go through these in stages, or at least we try to. Let's say we're here. This is our first app. Of course, with all the new app, it's all hot reloaded, so you don't have to do anything. It's nice and simple. So what we're going to do, I want to show you as well. Sorry, let's go on the next tab, maybe. What you got, what Vue actually shows. So can everyone see this, or do I need to make it bigger? So this is the Vue add-on for Chrome and Firefox. There is none for Edge or Internet Explorer. If you're using it, you're in the wrong world. So what it actually allows you to is it allows you to go through the component. So here shows that my main component is called Net Magazine, and then there is a component called Hello World, and it shows you what kind of data there are. It will show you the properties. It will show you the computer properties if you have any. If you go Vuex, it shows that. If you go event, it can show you the event, and these are the messages I was talking before. Show you the routing, so you can actually analyze and see if it goes through. You can, at time, you can also change. It's fine, just change it. At times, I did say at times. Oh, quote. It actually changes? Yeah, thank you. 2 points, amazing. Then this one is actually be added in the last release. So when I got ready for this yesterday, the performance tab wasn't there, and this morning it appeared. I thought, let's hopefully make sure it's not a breaking change, and everything else actually changed. So it's really powerful. You will be able to understand as you go through this. The first problem you're going to have is, oh, I can't see the data. Why I cannot see the data? You will be able to go through and say, wait a minute, the data stops here, or the name is not the same, or there's a spelling mistake. It's very simple for people to get started and understand what is going wrong. So we're going to go through that, and what we're going to do, we're going to create our first component. So I've cheated a bit because everything is ready and just commented out. So this will be a very basic component. There's nothing dynamic on it, and this is all you need. If you actually are importing the JavaScript, you don't even need the name. So the name is just needed if you are adding each component to the Vue instance. But if you're actually importing it with its own name, you don't really need the name either. It's a div, an h1 is a p tag, so not very useful, but it still be useful if you're using these for a header and a footer on your website and you want to share it across. I know it's not extremely useful, but it's a good start. What we're going to do, I'm going to show you the app. Okay, so don't think about the commented out information. What you have is JavaScript on the very top. And if I go a bit further up, you see, can you all read this? I can make this bigger if you want. Are you all okay on the back? Bit bigger. Is that okay? I can make it bigger, but then it's fine. We'll make it bigger. Why not? Bigger is better. Wow. So we can close this. We don't need it anymore. So what you can see, we got a template. Okay. Template. You put whichever HTML you want in it. As you can see, most of it is actually normal JavaScript. There's nothing. The only difference you will probably see is the hello world. So this is one of the Vue components that we actually created. It's a very simple component because I'm not passing anything to it. So it's actually a component that I'm calling. I'm not passing any properties, nothing. It's just a component. So you could create a header and a footer and not passing any dynamic data in it. We go through that. We go a little bit down. We go the script tags. In the script tags, you can have more JavaScript, as you may expect. We have a name that is the name of the component. As I say, it's not mandatory. And then you got the data. So as I said before, the data is the private part. So the data it's owned by this component that is my app.vue, and then it can be passed over through the children, but is not shared across different components if they're the same layers, and the children cannot change it. They cannot change it. So in our case, we're going to work on news, and we're going to have a couple of titles and a very long articles. What you can see as well, there's a snippet length just to show that you can set default and so on and so forth. If you go down, we got methods. I'm not actually using it. And we got the different components that I've already loaded in. And then we got mixins. Mixins are very, very powerful if you know what to use and how to use it. So we mainly used mixins for, so if you're doing an application, I would have an Apollo API mixin. So something that just accepts a do this query with the query title and does all the rest for you. It can trigger, it can add properties to a component. You can have, in this case, an accessibility mixins, or you can have a validate mixin. So if you know how to build mixins, they're very powerful. When you add the mixins to the page, a mixins is just the script tags of a Vue.js. So mixins has its own data, has its own properties, has its own method, has its own computed properties. So when you add the mixins on an object, it actually increases the properties they accepted, they increase the data. So you can really you can do so much with it. Style-wise, as you can see, it looks really bad, so we're not going to go through the style. But in this case, as you can see, I'm actually using SCSS. What we're going to do next, we're going to go through the first step. So I'm going to create a little new snapshot. And I'm going to have a little, oh, I think I went to no, that's the second stage. Here we are. Very simple. New snapshot is going to accept something, so a title and an article. And as you can see, I got them as the properties. Properties they can be very simple, like in this case, where you can actually specify if it's a string, if it's a boolean, if it's an object, an array. So you actually got some typing as well there. So if I try to pass a number, it'll actually break. It doesn't render. So it's, there's a little bit of power in there, even if we know JavaScript should be nice and flexible, but a little bit of powerful integration there. What you can do, you can actually have different properties. You can have validation on each of the properties. You can have default. You can have validation, default, do something else. Don't remember. I don't remember. But there is more in there that I think probably it actually shows in the next one. But they're really powerful. But again, you can start from something very, very simple. That is nothing there. And you can go, validation, default, and you can actually say if it's required or not. So you can build something out of that. So this one, let's see how it renders. So we actually go here, and we do something really bad. So we show the new snapshot. So I'm importing it here. So I'm just going to write news-snapshot. So this is my new component now, normal HTML, nothing to worry about. So for our grads, what we did initially, we gave them and say, these are the components, this is what we do. Look at them in Storybook to see what properties they accept, use it. So as you know how to use an input tag, you can use this. And they started with that. Bbind is what to say, what object you want to pass through. So if I wanted to, I could have hard-coded the object in there. But what I'm actually doing, I'm going to say, you have to take the first element of the news. So if I do this, and I do this as well, I go back to my, okay. Ooh, look at that. I got the component and it's actually working. So that's a good start. Of course, we don't want to go through and actually add all the object one by one, otherwise it's not going to be really dynamic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use one of the first, I think they're called directives. I never managed to understand if it's the right word. One of the first Vue directives or Vue helper that is, for example, Vue 4. It'll go through the object and apply that object. So what this is doing is JavaScript guys. So go in each view, get me an item in an index, and just go through that, and every time just append item. So I do this, I save, I go on that one. Oh. Bad boy. Yeah, still the same result, okay? First of all, I want to remove this, it's really annoying. Yeah, better, okay? So same result, we got a Vue directive. The first question you probably ask is, how many directives there are, which one they are. So if I go here, this is an example of it, okay? So if you go to v4, so we got vtext, vshow, vif, velse. You got the bind, the model. The model is very, very powerful. It's a bit more complex and advanced, but it's used for input fields. So what the model does, it actually takes the value that the field is changing. You can do so much with it. It's a bit more complex. I'm not going to go through that. You have, where's the Vue 4? You got all the events, so on key, on everything, so you can trigger, very simply, you can trigger your own method or a normal JavaScript method through here, or actually change something. You can load components, and all these can actually work with asynchronous requests and anything else. So I'm going to speed up a bit. So you can go through here, and actually you can see the power of it. So as I say, you got the v4 that is here. You got the on, you got the vshow. So you don't have to do any JavaScript. Everything just works. First time, every time. So we're going to go here now. What we're going to do, we're going to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to open them all, so I don't have to. More interesting, and we're going to do this. As I mentioned before, I want to show you how the computed properties actually work. So I'm not changing anything, as you can see from the main app. I'm actually passing the same title and the same object. So think of this as I'm upgrading the object by myself, no one knows about it. What is actually adding it is vOn, so on click of the actual div is triggering this method. That's what it's doing. The title, we've seen it before, and the article, we've seen it before. What it's actually doing is saying, is the showing snippets is true? I want you to show the snippets. So I'm going to show you a few things now that is starting to be a bit more complicated, but stay with me. And if you got any question or something that you don't understand, let me know. So first thing, extend. You're able to create a very basic version of it and extend on top of it. So an example in our workplace, we got a button. The button actually does the logs. So every time you click on a button, it logs it for auditing purposes. So we created a button, but then we created a download button, an upload button, and other kind of buttons. So you can create something simple, go on top of it, and you got enough unit testing on the actual component not to destroy anything else. We got the data for the first time. So we got some information coming from outside. As you can see, guys, the title and the article are not actually shown because they're in the article. So before I defined the, oh, it's not there, is it? Yeah. So you remember this? The properties of title and article, I don't need to define it anymore because I'm extending an article. So I'm expanding the functionality of article. And if I want to, I could actually override the property. So I can say title now is actually required in this component. And you can do that and create different components. We're using the data. So when this starts, this is the only nasty thing that they got in the whole application. And the guy who created it hates this, but he can't take it off. So you write whatever you want in there. And in this case, we got a variable called show with snippets that it starts to true. Because this is a data, we can change this within the component. Anything else, we can't do it within the component itself. Then I'm going to create a cached or computed properties called snippets. So as you can see, snippets is used the same way as article, the same way as title. So think of it as a property, but that you create on the fly. Very simple JavaScript, guys. It takes the full article. It takes the first 10 characters. It shows it with the ... Nothing different. Okay? And then what I'm doing, as I say, on click, I'm doing toggle article. So there is a toggle article method, that's all. And this is actually changing the data. So I say, take the these dots showing snippets and do the inverse. So if I go back to the application, guys, and I just click 1, 2, 3, I'm telling you it works. You're not my friend anymore. Show one, show two. It's fine. I'm going to show the next one because there's not much. So this actually worked 15 seconds ago.
Is this a new snapshot 2, whereas the component's a new snapshot 1?
It's fine. Let me go. I just got 4 minutes, so I'll jump over. The next one will work. I'm confident, guys. Pew. Oh, do you mean this one? Yes, you're right. Guys, clever guys. Look at that. So we got something. If I click on it, pew, pew. As you can see, each of them actually have his own state, so it's not changing all of it. If I would have changed the very nasty return, if you change one, you change all of them. So that's the only thing. But again, you go on the Vue documentation, they got a counter example that is fantastic to learn. Next and last. Oh, it's not really last. Oh. Sorry. Next, we got this one. So what we're doing is snapshot 0. Very similar to before. There is an image. I didn't make it dynamic. I could have. There is a couple of buttons. This one triggered article, and there is again more dynamic text. There is likes. So now I'm just adding the likes. So there is some data with its own likes, and every time you create this component, it will have likes. It will have its own counter of the likes. There's a toggle contrast. So when you click that, oh, that shouldn't be there. And then there is a toggle high contrast for accessibility. If you go through that, you see that there's nothing for accessibility. So I got the title, I got the article, snippet length. So as you can see, that it's not required that if you don't put anything, it's going to be 20, but you can actually have a longer one. And then you go some data, so the likes and the showing. This is very similar to before, and the only thing is changing the button text now. So if it's not showing the button, if it's showing the snippets, it says show full article or otherwise. So very simple. We got 50 lines, it includes HTML and JavaScript. And what you also see, there is a mixin. So now I'm using for the first time something a bit more advanced, a bit more complex. As I say, mixins are just the JavaScript portion of the Vue templates. You got properties, so you got these properties coming through. And the only thing I'm doing is there is a data, so each of the components using it will have its own. And then I'm just using JavaScript to change the background. That's all I'm doing. Okay? So if there's more time, I'll talk later about why it's done. So we go through that, and there was something else I want to say. Toggle likes, toggle article, no. And the only thing I want to show you as well, that on the app, I'm actually adding the mixins on the actual main app. So I'm using the mixins in different locations, and all of them will actually enhance the feature of my app. So if I go up, I think, oh, this is right, good. So if I go back now, as you can see, I got an image, so it's a bit different. There are 3 buttons. If I click on the like, you can see that this one is changing, this one is not. The best thing, if I go on the Vue.js and I go on the snapshot, you can see that there is the data of 1, there's this isDay, and there's all the information from accessibility because I've loaded accessibility mixins. So again, it's very powerful when you actually see it. What I'm also doing is I want to show the full article. As you can see, this still works. And I want to toggle the high contrast and toggle it back. If I'll do it in here, it's the same. So again, all this is all added from default. You can override. So because these are properties of a specific components, you can actually change those properties. I think I've one last thing that is this. So again, very similar to before. You got the click, and I'm calling toggle high contrast. When you go here, there's no method for it. So again, because I'm loading the mixins loads everything. It loads the properties, the data, the method, the computer method. So it's really powerful when you see behind the scene. So how many times, guys, you do things that you have to repeat? So as I say, it can be logging, it can be auditing for your own things to see, how the websites actually do. You may have a counter. You want to know how long you spend on each page, and you can have a mixins that does that. Because the mixins has access to the accessibility, and it has access to all the life cycle. So you can say, when it's mounted, start counted. When it's destroyed, stop. You know how long it's been actually declared. 3 lines of code is very powerful. So I actually saved that. So let's see if it actually works. So as you can see, there's a toggle contrast here, and actually does it on all of them. The only reason why it's not applying to this one is because I've already toggled them. So if I actually click the page, to do this, you see that is taking control of everything. But then, of course, this is where you go into advanced part of the Vue, because I'm actually changing the things myself. Now there is a state of its own colors for this component. So the data of this component is not shared by that one, and there is more, you start to go into more advanced feature. But as you start to look into it, it's very, very simple to understand. So if I go back here, so you see that the isDay is actually false for this one, and the next one, the isDay is actually true. And as simple as that, things actually change. I don't think I have anything else to show. I think I showed enough. Oh, I got 30 seconds, so yeah. I think I showed enough. So as I say, I have not touched the messaging. That is very, very powerful because it will be a bit too complex. But the other things that Vue actually has is, as I say, asynchronous, work with promises. So this is an example that I did. He actually uses, there is a animation as well, all part of it. So very simply, with 3 lines of code, you're able to do these kind of things. And you're able to go through. So it's something stupid. But for me, it took 4.5 hours for me to have this, that it goes to the real GitHub API with Apollo.js, with animation, and everything else. This looks a bit better. So it doesn't take that long to actually go through. So it's really, really powerful. Any questions? Thank you so much, guys, for coming.